Welcome. I'm Linda Leith. I'm the publisher at Linda Leith Publishing, and I am delighted to see you all here. This is a lovely crowd, a lovely day, a lovely occasion when we are launching Mikhail Iossel's new book, Sentence, and Ingrid Bejerman, who is our host today, is also the host of the conversation she is going to be having with Mikhail about sentence, and I'm sure we will range beyond sentence, or at least beyond one sentence. And and I think you're willing to take some questions at the end.
Sure.
And so you can store up your questions and we'll be recording those and the answers as well. Since your questions may not be heard, we will ask Ingrid to repeat the question when that time comes. Anyway, without further ado, I introduce Ingrid Bejerman and Mikhail Iossel.
Thank you so much, Linda, and welcome everyone. Have a great afternoon. And again, welcome. So tonight, or this afternoon, we have the pleasure of speaking with Mikhail Iossel, author, professor, and literary dissident, whose bold and brilliant new collection, Sentence, Stories, Linda Leith Publishing 2025, pushes the boundaries of form and memory. Each story in this book is written as a single, unbroken sentence, challenging, lyrical, and fiercely alive. It's a meditation on language, repression, and personal memory, drawn from Iossel's life growing up in the Soviet Union and his years as an emigre and writer. Mikhail, or Misha to most of us, I think to all of us, is the author of several previous collections, and his work has appeared in the New Yorker, Granta, and elsewhere. He teaches creative writing in Montreal and is the founder of the Summer Literary Seminars in Kenya and all over the world. Please join me in welcoming Mikhail Iossel. So just so you know, we're going to keep it really short, the length of a sentence, because I'm sure all of you are dying to mingle and with each other, as is Misha with you. So, but hopefully this will be fun and good point of departure for the conversation. So let's start with the title, Misha, Sentence, the obvious. Each story is one long sentence. How did this approach emerge for you? Was it planned or did it evolve naturally?
I was prepared for this question, but I have no idea how to answer it. Thing is that I was looking to do something new, to do, so to speak, a new way of narrative, one that would be very comfortable for me and unconventional. And, everyone has their internal rhythm in any form of their creativity. In writing, obviously, André Gide said that style is the person. I'd say that it's inner acceleration of one's creativity is the person. And so it's the rhythm of a Russian sentence, essentially, of a very long Russian sentence. Russian is a much more amenable language to overwriting. It's easy to start somewhere and then take off in a cloud of dust and end up 5 pages later wondering how you ended up there. It's like a John Ashbery poem or something. And so I just decided not to limit myself in the process of writing. Just keep spinning and spinning and spinning and remembering and readjusting memory and readjusting yourself in the process of memory and the process of writing. I wanted to come as close as possible to the illusory combination of or space between thought and word. And whatever memory would come to mind, I would put it there, and then sometimes I would delete it and sometimes I wouldn't. But it's very much a book about writing. It's about writing in a non-native language. It's about someone who came to the United States at the age of 30, very capable of reading English, but completely incapable of speaking or writing it. And so my first sentences, writing in English, was largely a mechanical exercise in putting together short sentences. And so in that sense, this book is a marker of a distance traveled by one individual in the process of writing in a non-native language. So, because I'm not bilingual at all, but I just managed to adjust English to my needs in terms of speaking and in terms of writing. And so in that sense, yes, it's. I told myself that I've earned it, this distance, this way of writing, this closeness between memory and reality, between past and present. They all collide and intertwine in the space of one sentence, sometimes of half of a sentence, and so forth. So, that's a very short way of answering that question.
Thank you so much, Misha. I'm sure I just realized that all of you will have certainly way more interesting questions than mine, you know, and I do want to, I'd rather hear yours than mine. I'm not sure, I prepared 20 questions for the record. So, but anyway, we're not, so keep thinking. I'm going to ask one and then I'll see if other people have questions. With Linda and Misha, I'd like both of you to tackle this question about putting the book together, the editing process. What was it like to edit a book that is so unique and different in format, right? That has this challenge or this, you know, new form. What was it like to work? How was your relationship with Linda as an editor, in other words, the editing process? Linda?
I was told in no uncertain terms that there would be no editing.
She answered it in one question, in one sentence answer. Perfect.
Well,
But Misha, do you want to comment?
Yeah, the idea of putting book together actually emerged in the process of our meeting about something entirely different with Linda. We were drinking something extraordinarily green. What was that? Matcha, right? On Bishop Street. We were drinking something astoundingly green stuff. Yes, and so no tea of some sorts. And suddenly I just said, Linda, do you want me to put together this as a book? Because I hadn't offered it to anyone. I wasn't thinking about it much. The book is dedicated to 4 people, all of them recently dead, and all of them had a very large influence on me. One was Robert Coover, who died recently. Was experimental and avant-garde and exceptionally kind human being, who went with us to St. Petersburg several times and encouraged me in my writing. The other 2 were 2 great friends and 2 great Russian poets who both lived in the United States and in Israel, Alexei Tsvetkov and Bakhti Kinjeev. But the last one was Stan Persky, who passed away recently, who was an father of Canadian avant-garde in many ways, who lived the last years of his life in Berlin. And once I posted one of those sentences written just for fun, essentially, to see if I could get away with it, as I sometimes post stuff on Facebook. He contacted me and he said, if you have more of these sentences, I would love to serialize those on my journal, online journal. And yeah. Um, uh, and so I said, sure, except I only had like 2 or 3. And so every week I started turning out one of those sentences. And he posted them. And then eventually he disappeared. He got sick. And then eventually he died. I kind of lost the motivation for continuing to write. But then I realized that I have quite a few of those already. And so that's how it came out naturally during conversation with Linda. Again, I had no idea prior to that it would be a book. I thought it was so.
Thank you, Misha. Questions? Anybody has a question? Yes, Sherry? No, I mean, let other people do my job. I mean, I have all these brilliant lines here.
This is a strange looking animal. Looks like a little bottle that I should drink from.
2 eyes, got 2 eyes in there.
Yeah. Linguistically speaking, English has sentence and sentence. Did you think of is there some way in which the idea that this was a sentence imposed upon you, or this was some sort of punishment?
Well, no, but we're all sentenced to the certain givens in our life. We don't choose certain things. right? We don't choose the place we were born. We don't choose the first language. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose the culture within which we grow up in many ways. And so, yes, we sentence to our memories, we sentence to our destiny in many ways. We try to change it, and very often we do change it. There is an irreducible core to every one of us that cannot be changed. It's like, peeling an onion. You will peel it up to a point, but that there will be an irreducible core. That core is you. Uh, but lots of it is a sentence. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. David has a question.
I have a question. You're an old guy like me,
Yeah.
but you master social media. You wrote a book which was just tweets,
Yeah.
correct?
No, Facebook post.
Facebook posts. This book also sentences. It fits the modern times in a sense. And so I'm just interested in that, is that here you are publishing on old dead trees, but it's very much contemporary in the way you do it. And I'm just interested in how the form of digital media has influenced the way you write, because I mean, you post more Facebook posts than my 20-year-old daughter does.
Yeah. Well, there are different ways to answer that, I think. Um, so my friend Sergey, who is here, originally from St. Petersburg, and we've been friends for 40 plus years. And we were in the same underground literary community in St. Petersburg and Leningrad. You'll remember our great friend and influence and mentor in many ways, the great poet Arkady Dragomoshenko, who in his late 60s became a master of the internet. Then it just put in its budding shape, right? It's just, so there is something to that, to just desire to discover and master something that was not available to you then and there, and thus become part of a larger world. That was a part of parcel of his wanting to be in the flow of American language poetry, for instance, in his case. So another way is to say that once you get uprooted, you keep rolling. And so you keep doing things along the way, like posting stuff on Facebook or organizing literary conferences all over the world and so forth. You've been uprooted, and you once an emigre, you keep rolling in a variety of ways, I think. But you just keep inventing things that are interesting for you to do. But also, it was that at some point I realized that on Facebook, if I post a short story on Facebook or something that, first off, I come from samizdat, self-publishing, underground publishing in Russia. I was part of it. I co-edited a samizdat journal and so forth. So, so that form is, I sensed part of it in Facebook, that it was self-publishing. And that if I post something, let's say a short story in one sentence on Facebook, then with a certain number of followers, more people will read it than subscribers to Massachusetts Review, who will publish it in 7 months later. So here is the immediacy of it, and also the immediacy of people's reaction to it. I know if people respond or if they don't respond and so forth, and that's just being out there in a way. So yeah, it sums that.
Follow-up?
It sounds that. That's a, you know.
Okay.
What that samizdat was.
Everyone, sorry, we need the microphone when you speak. But Masha has a question now. Hold on. Who's after Masha? Just raise your hand.
Masha.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to both your publisher and yourself for this experimental, wonderful book that bridges printed matter and Facebook. I have two questions. One is, now that you mastered this new form, has it become your internal mainstream? Would you continue writing in that modality? And second is, has it allowed you to express some different facets of your being and of your life? And has this form allowed you to approach different substance and express different things that you wouldn't have reached if you haven't reached out to this form and to this format?
I don't know yet. I started writing another book, and I think it will be a combination of conventional and less and sentences and this kind of form as well, because everything is good as just. But it's the most unconventional of my books, and it's also by far the most personal, precisely because of this form. Because I didn't hold back about anything, because memory comes to mind. I readjust it, I reform it, I reframe it, and I'll put it there, and then it'll be beget another memory, and then a new turn. And every story is plotted too, so it starts with a storyline. But once you proceed with the storyline, you just improvise. In many ways, it's a jazz-like composition. So that's one thing, I think. Well, actually, I think I answered both questions. I think it's yeah, it's if I were to write more sentences like this, it'd be more personal stuff coming out, because memories come in the process of remembrance. And yes, absolutely, yeah. I've been thinking of becoming a therapist. Yeah. Yeah.
Patient or the
Yeah. Okay, Jason, have a question?
Congrats, Misha, on this
Спасибо.
book. I want to go back to your first early remarks on the sentence in relation to Russian literature. You mentioned Gide also, right? I'm thinking of a couple of things. One, different ways of thinking about the sentence as a kind of aesthetic container, right? In Walter Pater's essay on style, he talks about Flaubert's sentence, right? But for its kind of perfect concision, for its removal of everything that's unnecessary, right? I think his phrase is all of the otiose, facile surplusage is eliminated from the sentence, right? Another French author, Proust, who was living on his deathbed, adding
How do you spell?
adding to his sentences and creating beautiful long sentences that were required for the sort of phenomenological experiment that he was pursuing, right? And as I've known you a long time, and the sentence actually has always been for you. Oh, hi, Gloria. Has always been for you, it seems to me, a marker of your, or a kind of point of assessing another writer. Like you often talk about so-and-so's sentences versus someone else's sentences. So I guess my question is, what have you learned about the sentence as a kind of aesthetic container or an expressive container? So what have you learned about the sentence in writing this book, and what is your contribution to the sentence?
Let me talk about my contribution to international culture. Yeah.
I'll give it back.
Well, yeah, Proust, uh, Proust and Flaubert worked differently with sentences, and that Proust's novels mushroom. He didn't cut too much. He actually just, you can even see it. Yeah, but typically with the short story you cut, and I cut a lot but I would question myself in the story that this is boring. I would say it, or stop it, or just cut it out, and then I would cut it or not, or say like, well, you've been talking about that a lot. Well, so cut it out. Why do you keep talking about that? And so on. So I learned that it works for me. I learned that it has its limits. I learned that I don't know if anyone has done something. There are numerous books written in one sentence, including the recent Nobel Prize winner John Fosse, right, whose septology is just one sentence, except he arranges sentences there differently, right? He just with breaks and so forth. But there's Thomas Bernhard, right, who wrote books in one sentence, and of course, 12 years ago, I wrote a short piece called Sentence, and it was published at that point, the New Yorker published that kind of stuff. And so my editor liked it there, and it was one evening in the underground literary club. And so I thought then that I pushed it to the limit. And so one of the impulses for this, for the writing of this, I thought, why don't I try more sentences like this? Not, I didn't send them this time to the New Yorker because I knew that they wouldn't take it, and because it wasn't for that. It was for me. I wanted to find a way of doing narrative that would allow me the utmost degree of freedom. That's what, I don't know, Jason, if I answered that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I was just thinking the greatest modern experimental novels are recognized specifically for their sentences, right? Joyce, Beckett, Lowry, all these people are, and Cormac McCarthy, you look at them and the novels, people think hard about the sentences as opposed to, other aspects. Do you have a favorite sentence, Meister?
But also there are lots of caveats, right? True, but lots of people say, well, and then there is another strain and whole another body of literature where people don't particularly care about sentences. Tolstoy didn't care about his sentences. He just rolled along, right? It's just like you walk into this quietly, deceptively sedate river, and then suddenly you discover that undertow is exceptionally strong. Dostoevsky never had a moment to rewrite a single sentence, extremely sloppy writer, but tremendous intensity of feeling, right? So many years ago, I mentioned the Literary Club 81 that both Sergei and I belonged to, and the head of that club, the old Soviet-style writer who also was a dissident, Boris Ivanovich Ivanov, Sergei will remember, he called me shtukari in Russian. So somebody who does things with writing but doesn't tell the story like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. Remember, Sergei? Shtukari. And it's trickster. Yeah, trickster, literary trickster of sorts. And at that point, I said, well, okay, yeah, I certainly am not going to write like you. It's kind of boring as hell. But it gets back to what I said. We just, in a way, sentence to our sensibility creatively, and so the stories we tell, we'll be telling them in different ways, but irreducible core of our creativity will remain, like in that onion.
Just gonna pass the mic to the back. 1 second. The person here.
Thank you. I love the form, and I love the way you've played with it on Facebook, on your Facebook postings, and I'm very curious to read the book. But aside from that, I was very interested to hear you say in your opening comments that you do not consider yourself bilingual, and in this city of so many people being bilingual and striving to be bilingual, I was curious what you meant by that.
I meant by that my native language is Russian, and English is just a language I know very well, but nowhere near being native speaker of English. I can speak English. I learned to camouflage my Russian accent, but I can very easily get rid of it. At any moment, I can start speaking with a real Russian accent. Yeah. So yeah.
We need a microphone. Yes. Do you mind repeating Sherry's question?
Should I pass it along?
Okay, pass the microphone to Sherry. No, go. Well, he'll go first, and then Sherry will ask the question. Okay.
Sherry, no, I'm not frustrated to write in English. No. Why would I? No. But I started writing in English because at the point when I came to the United States, I was in despair, and I was depressed, and everything I wrote in Russian is also extremely good in conveying your depression, and it's a very good language for it, extremely good. It's just like your pal. Okay, let's talk about your depression. And so Russian was basically aiding and abetting me in feeling depressed. And so I switched to English as a mechanical exercise to put a sort of like a plexiglass wall between myself and the world in a way. And so, yeah, Russian is free air, and English is not free for me. So I overcome its resistance, and that's also part of the process of writing.
Doesn't prevent you from writing a book, though, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, microphone. Please introduce yourself. Here, you have a. You forgot to do that. Yes. Go ahead.
Do I?
JP, you wanted to ask?
Sure. At the risk of heaping too much praise on you, congrats again on the book. But no, my question is more on the front of the experiential aspect of actually writing a book like this. Having to write sentences at that kind of length, I don't know whether or not people, maybe this is a humble plug for your book as well for anybody watching this, but in the course of having to write a long singular sentence that is meant to tell one narrative at a time, are we to expect different experiences in terms of, is it a marathon for you at times? Is it an obstacle course? Is this a walk in the woods? Is this you perusing a sort of like wonder cabinet of memories?
Well, I can talk about the heart of the writing process, and especially stories like this, is to constantly find reasons to continue to feel excited. You have to be in a state of high animation to keep doing this. So you better come up with interesting things to say, or some that come. I'm not suggesting that the readers would find it interesting either. But I've learned long time ago that if it's interesting to you, there'll be at least one person out there in the world who will also find it interesting. And I don't think in terms of who and how will find it interesting, and I don't wink at the reader, but but you know, every writer knows that the first and foremost person that you have to keep interested in the process of during the process of writing is yourself. And then somebody will follow. So to answer your question, JP, is find interesting things to say, and find the energy to say them. But the energy comes from being interested.
Question? David?
Linda wasn't allowed to edit you, but how do you edit yourself?
What do you mean? I didn't say anything like that to Linda. Linda.
But, so you write a long sentence, and then you work on getting rid of what is, you know, I remember
Absolutely.
Charlie Parker. Charlie
rewrite it.
Parker was asked once, how did he play? And he said, you got rid of, he didn't play the notes he didn't need.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I read, I reread the text. I read it and I reread it and I read it aloud. And where it slows down or where it fails to keep me interested, I'll cut it. And then somewhere I'll think of something else interesting to say, and I'll find a way to organically graft it onto that story.
Thank you.